Hi everyone. Today I'm here to give you all a bit of an update on our kelp restoration project. This is a project we've been working on since 2022 in collaboration with SeaForester, and it's a project aimed at restoring kelp forests here along the Portuguese coast. And it's been a challenging project, but it's also been really interesting, and we've started to see some very promising results in the last year. And if you watched the previous video update on this project, which we'll leave a link to in the description, you may know that last year's deployments already went really well, where the kelp survived for over 200 days after being deployed in the open ocean. And some of the kelp even grew about 30 centimeters in size. So it did really well, but it failed to attach to the underlying reef, and so didn't survive the winter storms. And this is a bit disappointing, of course, but it's already a very good result. So the kelp was surviving for a long time. And this just shows that we are at a stage, at a point where very small adjustments, changes to what we've been doing might be enough for us to start getting some reliable results, some long-term survival of the kelp. And yeah, we learned from this, and we've been tweaking these things, and it's very exciting because these changes might just be enough to start getting the kelp to survive in the long term and start growing and developing properly. Last month, our partners at SeaForester successfully deployed another batch of kelp in the Guia Reef. This was actually the most advanced batch of kelp that we've deployed on this project so far, because it had more time to grow in the nurseries. This batch was seeded last year and was supposed to be deployed during the spring. But for various reasons we had to push it to September, and so this kelp had a bit more time to grow and develop. We're quite curious to see how it does in the coming months, because it might even be an advantage for the kelp to be a bit more developed than the previous batches, as it might be a bit more resistant and a bit stronger to face the harsh conditions of the Atlantic Ocean. So yeah, that's really cool, and you can really see how big the kelp already is on the pebbles, on the little rocks. Quite developed already. And yeah, you can see the SeaForester team carrying the trays from the temperature controlled van, which was used to transport the trays of kelp to the port, and then being put on the boat, and then being taken out to the deployment site. And this year we actually changed our deployment site. So last year we deployed on the north side of the Guia Reef, but after conducting a few more surveys and having divers be out on the reef and assessing the seafloor conditions, it really did seem like the southern part of the reef provided better seafloor conditions. It's a bit more stable, flat. There's not so much inclination, so this will avoid the tumbling that we saw on the northern side, and hopefully allow for a higher success rate in the survival of the kelp. So yeah, we're quite confident that this site will give us a better chances of success. You can see the SeaForester team deploying the kelp via a tube, which is on the boat, which has an opening on the middle and splits to both sides of the boat. And gently the trays of kelp one by one are placed onto the opening. The seeded stones fall and start to be deployed alongside on either side of the boat along the reef as the boat is moving along slowly. The kelp has been deployed. Now there's not much we can do. We basically have to wait. There will be a few surveys conducted in a couple of months to see how the kelp is doing after being deployed. And hopefully the kelp survives and attaches to the rocky reef. But we're quite confident that this site is in fact better and will allow for survival of the kelp and that it attaches. But yeah, we're excited to see how it goes. We're also quite excited about the second deployment of kelp that will be happening this year, which is gonna happen around November, December, depending on how the kelp is doing. And this is the kelp that we seeded during the summer. And for this batch, we are trying something new, and we made a post about this, so you can go read all about it. But basically, we use a new technique, which is called the sea socks, and consists of putting the small rocks, the pebbles, inside of a biodegradable mesh before seeding the kelp. And the theory behind this is that the rocks all together inside the biodegradable mesh will be heavier and will basically be less susceptible to being moving around a lot if the sea conditions are not so good, and will hopefully also have a higher chance of getting stuck and lodged in the crevices, and so allowing for the kelp to develop better and eventually move off the rocks and onto the underlying reef. We're quite curious to see how this technique does once we deploy. We're also considering doing this deployment at a bit of a different site than we've done before, at a deeper site. So we're thinking of deploying this batch at about 40 meters. We have not decided anything yet, and we're still assessing and doing surveys of different deep sites. But the theory is that since we're deploying this batch later in the year, and sea conditions, especially here on the Portuguese coast, the Atlantic Ocean can be quite rough. So deploying during winter, it might be interesting, and it might be more logical to deploy at a deeper site where the conditions are not so bad and will give the kelp a bit more space and tranquility to grow and develop and attach, because at those kind of depths, sea conditions are just not as you don't feel them as much. And so we haven't decided anything yet, and we're still assessing, but this is a possibility, and it does make sense. Kelp grows and exists up to 50-60 meters deep, and it depends on, of course, the turbidity of the water and how much light passes. But we do think that this could be a way of allowing the kelp to grow and develop in a calmer environment, and this might give it a higher chance of surviving and attaching to the reef. So we're still considering, of course. Nothing has been decided. There's still a lot to talk about and assess, but this is a possibility, and it's exciting, trying all these different approaches and new things, and trying to find what works for the Portuguese coastline, because the water conditions and ocean conditions and seafloor conditions differ from place to place. So we have to take all of this into consideration and figure out what works for us, for the kelp here. So it's really exciting stuff. And we'll keep you posted and updated as we go along and proceed on this project. And I hope to see you around. Cheers.